Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Jin Shin Institute. I'm glad Jules is here today, and we're going to have a conversation about the depths, which is really, I remember when I first took my workshop, I went and called, I'd never heard of Jin Shin Jutsu or energy work or anything. And so I went through a whole week of practice, and on the way back, driving back to the city with a car full of pretty experienced people who've been studying for years, I said, now, I really don't understand what is a depth. And nobody could actually give me an answer. So, I think that could be an interesting discussion between the four of us. We have Robbie, who's really, really new to Jin Shin. She's never really taken all the material, just self-help. And Lisa, who has taken connections and has been coming for a long time, so she will have different questions and different views. And then Jules and myself will go back a while. So also, if there's any questions from people from wherever you are watching from, please feel free. And so today we're going to take one part of the conversation, and then next month we'll continue looking at the depths. So just a few events that we're having that come up is next weekend, March 23rd, my brother's birthday. We have a self-help class here from 11 to 1, and then Sunday, March 24th, we have the self-help class for the cancer patient, and that is for if you have cancer, if you don't have cancer anymore, for caregivers or somebody close, and also if you can spread the word, because this is a free event. It's sponsored by Breastlink, and so it's at the JCC at 76th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. And then next week we have next Wednesday we have a link live with Carlise Smith, and Carlise is coming in from London to teach the Pulse workshop here. And she is a wonderful teacher she taught for JSJ Inc. for many years. And so in this way you'll get to know her, and if you have any questions, we'll be a Q&A and see how she responds, and then we would love to see you here in New York. So a depth. So we'll just go back and forth. For me, I think of a cycle of energy.
Yeah, I like the word cycle. We get when we study, we make charts, or we get these different charts that tell us the qualities of depths, right? And so we put them into these columns and these rows, and sometimes that format makes you think that it's a square, so you start to think that it's all like,
please turn off your cell phones.
So it's all like set in stone, but when you talk about a cycle, it's something that a cycle moves, right? It goes around in a circle. And so I think that's important to remember with depths, is that they're constantly changing and shifting.
Yeah.
In relation to each other.
Yes, I think Mary developed a system of depths because Jim Rai never really talked about it. And if you notice Mary's textbook, then you see that the depth is not really mentioned till the end of text 1, when we start to reverse and increase them. And so she really formed this system as organizing it. Like, if you see them as different, the baskets, the first depth has a different quality than the second depth. So they're different qualities. And so Philomena always used to say to me, put a project in a depth. And it gives you a kind of organization. So when you listen to the pulse, when you look at the body, all of these different things. So that is one way to look at it, is as an organizational point. So I don't know if you were thinking in that way about it.
Yeah. Well, there's a few things that you say that, one, when we say that that Jeremiah didn't talk to Mary about depths, I have some questions about that. I've heard people say that before, but I don't see how that's possible, because the depths are so related to like what people know as the elements or the phases, the 5 phases or the 5 elements of East Asian medicine in general, Chinese medicine, and the different modalities around East Asia. And so So I
Well, I'm
can't
not
imagine
saying-
that,
I'm not
that
saying
he
that he didn't talk about it.
but she translated it into the word depth, and I think she was very
Yes.
particular about that choice of word when translating it into English.
Yes,
you know,
yes. But we very, very quickly say this is second depth. But it may have the qualities, but it, you know, like again, what is a depth? Like when we start talking about the cycle of energy, what I think about is just the manifestation of the depths going on the supervisor flow, going through the one, and the first cycle of energy, which creates SEL 1 through 4, and then the second cycle of energy, and you know, skin surface.
Yeah.
And then the second cycle creates safety energy location 5 through 15. And so that's one way to look, for me, to look at a cycle of energy.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense when we look at the word depth, because we're literally like we're literally moving deeper into the body. So as we go through the depths, we have layers, and we talk about them like an onion with the different skins of the onion. And so first depth is, in Jin Shin Jitsu, we talk about it being the skin surface, and then you go deeper, and second depth is the deep skin. Third depth is the blood essence. Fourth depth is the muscle, and fifth depth is the bone, right? And the circulation.
Yeah, so if you think of it as cycles moving through the one, and it starts to create, really from skin surface to core. So that is one way to look at it.
So how the energy would affect each of those parts of the body, say the surface energy or the blood energy, that's kind of what you're talking about, and how it,
Yeah.
do they cross?
And then also the sort of the characteristics of that part of the body. So for example, skin in Jin Shin Jitsu, but also in Western medicine, we talk about skin being our first line of defense. And so we talk about first depth as having to do with being a container, being protective, holding things together. So it's not just that first depth is the physical surface skin, but that it governs those qualities of our lives. It governs our protection, our immune system,
Containment.
our sense of boundaries. And so then it becomes, the depths are not just a physical place for the energy to reside, but are also a metaphor for how we live our lives and those parts. And that's when it gets more exciting, but also more confusing.
So let's, for example, if you feel like you need containment, that's the first depth speaking. So you can hold your thumb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for example, there's a time and a part of your life that's related to a depth as well. For babies, it's the first depth, and they suck their thumb. So they naturally help this feeling of containment and nurturing and self-soothing, which has to do with first depth as well. So you see, it's very, very broad, and we can really talk about each of the depths for a long time, understanding them. Lisa, what is coming up for you?
Well, actually, before you mentioned about Philomena said put the project into the depth, I was actually thinking when we do the pulse reading, and so we know there's like 13, 14, the flow, and then we also know the depth. So say if you see there's a need in your reading, it's like 13, or which is, the index finger, but then how do you decide if it's 13th floor or the 5th depth?
So that's a very, very good question, and probably Jules and I will have a different answer to that. Because this is very much, first of all, where you are in your practice, how you practice, and what it means to you, right? So
And also who's on the table.
who's on the
Whose pulse you're listening to.
What do you mean, the age
The
or
person?
the project? The project.
All of it.
Yeah.
Everything they come to the table with, right?
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So for me, if I feel one finger specifically, let's say I feel this one speaking a lot, then for me that indicates that there's fifth depth something. That doesn't necessarily mean
fifth depth
Because of this one.
because of this
finger
finger.
and fifth depth being related to
Heart and small intestine. I will look at the fifth depth. On different levels, maybe I'll go to the vertebra or to the finger or to the heart flow or to, again, depending on the person who's there and what I feel in the rest of the pulse and what I see in the body and all of it. But so simply again, when I hear one finger clearly, then I think about a depth.
That's good.
Yeah. If it is both index fingers, then I could think about 13.
Why 13 with both?
Because the index finger has to do with the chest line. It tells you about the chest line.
Okay.
So if they're superficial, the pulses,
Okay.
then it talks about the 13s.
And then also, if you look at the 13 flow, on the organ function level, the 13 flow works with large intestine, umbilicus flow, and small intestine. And it helps to open up the chest, so it also helps the chest flows. In there we have lung, diaphragm, and heart. So we have the fifth depth organ flows being harmonized when you use the 13 flow. So even if Alexis chooses to use a heart flow and I choose to use the 13 flow, we're both working with fifth depth but just from a different angle. So even if no matter how you listen with the pulses, you're still, the way that it makes the lungs and the heart live in the bus line. Physically in our bodies, that's where they are. And that's what we hear on the index pulses. At the waistline, the middle pulses, we talk about 14s and 9s, and we're listening to first depth and third depth. So we have liver and spleen and stomach and gallbladder, and those are all flows that are harmonized by 14s. So whether you choose to approach it from an organ function level or a safety energy lock level, you're still going to be working on what the pulse is telling you needs help.
And would you think if it's more effective, you do both? I mean, say like 13 and
What do you
choose?
think? I mean, where are you at this time? Let's say, where you are? You've taken a few classes. You've come to a lot of study. How do you see it?
Well, I guess my experiences were usually we just go to the organ flow. I mean, most of the times it's like a project's treatment plan in a way, and so I feel not that much of the depth, and also to me depth is somehow just more kind of complicated. I was like thinking the drawing you did before relates to like the ascendant, descendant, and then the 5 elements.
So when you say to work on depth, then we're talking about reversing and increasing of the depth, for example,
For a flow,
for a flow.
Explain that more, reversing
in the textbook, there's 4 flows that are used, I think, to sort of harmonize that particular depth.
So let's say you feel the depth superficial and deep. Yeah, then you don't know which one is the need. Is it the descending part or the ascending part? Then you can go to the reversing and increasing of the depth. Or if you feel a depth and you give a flow pattern on that level, on the depth that you hear, and after it's still there, then you can go to another depth, the reversing and increasing, because we don't necessarily understand yet exactly, unless you can feel all of the textures in the pulses, then but you're still learning too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think to go to Lisa's question, I think one thing is the way to learn if it's important, and I think it's going to change from day to day and from person to person, right? The way to know the answer to that question is to listen to the pulse afterwards. You try, choose the flow that you are drawn to utilize first, and then check the pulse and see if it changed. And if it didn't change, then maybe you want to work on the organ level, or maybe you want to work on the safety energy level. But often it'll change, and something else will appear, or something will become more clear. That the pulse that you first heard that was loud, all of a sudden you realize it's not just loud; it's rocks and rods. It sounds like a rock hitting or metal, and so then that clarifies things a little bit more.
So if that's the case, would you go to the depth instead of the energy flow? I mean, organ flow?
When you say depth, do you mean safety energy location flow, like a 1 flow or 2 flow?
No, it's the, like, no,
13,
the
14, 15.
Yeah, 13, 14, 15, and then the 5th, and the 3rd, and the 4th depth when you do the deep. Well, I'm not thinking about the chart.
Personally, I work a lot with the safety energy location flows because they come from a higher vibration. They are not like the organ functions. You can already see them in the body, right? So if I go to, let's say, if I have a choice between a long flow and a 10 flow, I'll probably first start with the 10 flow. If the lung really needs a lot of repairing and nurturing, then I may go to a long flow. But very often the 10 will clear it. It's less manifest. So it's more on a causal level.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so one is, it sounds like you sort of work your way down from what's on the surface and what you feel immediately, and then it's like the onion, it peels off and you can say, okay, there's more going on here than I thought, so I'm going to do something different.
You can feel that right away, really. I mean, you can really, but you know how during a session I always go back to the pulse and check and see how the body responds to it. Also you bring yourself into it, so that is also something. It's like maybe we will feel something slightly different, or if you feel second depth on everybody, to check your own second depth. It's but is it a little more clear about it? Depth?
I think so.
So they have different qualities and different functions. Yeah.
So if the index finger and supervisor is the 13, right, and the deep is so it's also the 5th depth, right? Or am I wrong that but the 5th depth in on the finger chart is the heart, the little finger. I think I'm confused about the relation.
Yeah. Well, when we listen to the pulse, right, in the wrist, it doesn't matter what fingers we use to listen. We could listen with just, like let's say I have an index finger. I could listen with these.
I see.
And then you have to think of that this would be 13, 14, 15.
So it's not the finger that we just talk about it because that's what we listen with. So that it's like it's a fast way to say what we're listening to. But we could call those spots on the wrist different things.
On a baby, you can listen with one finger and feel it here, and here, because
Oh,
it's smaller.
Yeah.
You see?
And you could say first position, second position, third position. In Chinese, there's different words, a lot of different words for how you call that. But each position has a relationship to the body.
Right.
And so when we talk about those fingers, don't get that confused with on the depth level. First depth relates to the thumb, and fourth depth relates to the index finger, and third depth relates to the middle finger, and second depth relates to the ring finger, and fifth depth relates to the little finger. That's the depth level, and that you hold those fingers to harmonize those depths. Right.
So when we say 5, 3, 4, that is the depth, right? Or it's the self energy?
That is what we're listening to
in the
pulse.
So
Right,
relating to the body,
in the body.
it's what we see in the
So
body.
what is that fifth?
That's on the organ level.
So it's the self energy location? No.
It's
It tells you when you feel fifth depth in the pulse, which would be on my finger
Right.
and her wrist here. It talks about the fifth depth. It talks about the fifth depth. So it tells you about the heart and small intestine energy. It tells you also about the 13 and the 10, which actually don't live within fifth depth, but it's on. That's a different.
They're related.
It's a different level. Yes. Yeah. So 13, because 13 lives in the second depth, will help fifth depth also because it clears the chest line. And so when we hear fifth depth, it has something to do, there's a relationship with the chest line.
As well as with the other things. So can you feel the fifth depth in other places?
Oh yes, yeah. For example, you can feel it in the texture on the body, because that's another way to look at the cycle of energy, is that when we place our hands on the body, the energy spirals to the core and back, right? And you feel these different textures, like sometimes it's really quiet, sometimes it's loud. So this fifth depth texture you can feel as well, and you can feel it on the body.
And do the depths, are they associated with certain textures, with, quiet, or you're talking about
Harder.
harder or
Or-
metal, or I'm not sure what your descriptions would be.
Yeah, so we have third depth, which is like a fluffy texture. So
Maybe we'll find it today, then we can let you feel.
So-
So you can feel it on the pulse, and you can also feel it in the texture of the body.
Okay.
And for me, learning about pulses, I found it more helpful to feel the texture of the body. And once I could identify that there, then I could start to identify it in the pulse. Because the pulse was so small.
It's easier.
And so it was easier for me to actually feel like the manifested flesh, and press into it and stuff. So third depth would be fluff, right? Fifth depth is pulse. First depth is gummy.
Like a gummy bear. Literally like second depth.
Second depth is rocks and rods.
You have some second depth, right?
Yeah.
When we
Yeah,
go in,
yeah,
that
you
is
can
second
feel it.
depth.
Okay.
Those chords.
Yeah, it's like knots.
Yes.
That's how I would describe it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's easy to feel in the body.
And then second depth relates to
Long and large
Lung.
intestine.
Okay.
So it's,
And then the last one, fourth depth, is gurgles.
yeah, and I always think it's funny that gurgles, when you have the gurgles in your stomach, and so gurgles is fourth depth related to the element of water. And so when I first treated all the people in Holland like 20 years ago, they had so many gurgles, but there's so much water and it's so dark and gray there. I've never heard so many gurgles. So I do think that also it's a cultural thing. It's where
That's
people
interesting.
live.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
comes up.
The climate, how people interact with their climate will show up.
Well, that's interesting.
So I think next month we will continue the discussion about depth. And I just wanted to do a little bit of the hands and feet, like maybe take a few more minutes to just go over it. So do you want to, Madam? Do you want to just, so we can...
Some questions.
Oh, we have some questions, okay.
Yeah, so we've got a few questions. First from Gersh in Buffalo, New York.
Hi, Gersh.
Gersh, yep.
Hi, Gersh.
They would like to know what are the flows for the prostate and the bladder.
Is that for one person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bladder flow is great.
5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. See, yeah. So I go to the number flows. My first thought is the number flows. 5, 6, 7, 8 helps liver, kidney, spleen. So they go up the leg and then cross and then help all of the reproductive organs. Okay, so yeah, I would probably start there, and then of course bladder flow and the organ.
Yeah, the toe flows that 5, 6, 7, 8 helps with. So kidney, liver, spleen, main central.
It's nice to always seal it up with a main central, to seal the session with a main central source flow. I like to do that. So nice.
Everything.
Yes, yeah, so that it comes back together, and that the main center source is harmonized so that it can nurture everything. Yeah.
I would
Anything
also go with umbilicus flow.
Right.
You could do the self-help umbilicus flow.
Self-help umbilicus.
Especially if you're having issues at night, having to wake up a lot during the night. Umbilicus helps us regulate our water. Kidney and bladder and fourth depth we talk about is the water element. But umbilicus really has a lot to do with moving that water. So.
Okay, nice, yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So see how we look at the whole project in so many different ways. All right, Michael.
Next question comes from Kajal in Dubai. They would like to know what the connection is between the spine, like the vertebrae, thoracic, lumbar, and the depths.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there's so many connections.
Yeah,
That might be what we talk about next time.
Next time?
Yeah, because there's lots of different ways to see the depths on the main central.
Let's give them a little something again.
Okay.
How about we just handle the lumbars, since you talked about
Just
the
the
fingers. Yeah, just yeah. And then next month we will talk about the rest of the spine.
Oh, you make it hard. Which one does it start with?
L1.
L1 is first up.
Oh, I did make it hard.
Yeah, I always have
let's
to
have
look
our
at the chart.
let's have our tool there.
Yeah.
So if you have this tool,
It's a cheat sheet.
the cheat sheet. First depth here.
Okay, so here's
L5.
So, no, we'll start at the top of the lumbars, right?
Okay, yeah.
So going down from the bottom of the ribs, right? We have L1 is our first one, and that's third depth.
So just to make it clear, this is different than what we see in the textbook. We'll do that next month, the spine. Right? As they go like holding the thumb with the first lumbar.
Yeah.
So this is different. So here we're just talking about the lumbar circle and the lumbars, how you can help them.
Yeah. So
Right.
we have L1 is third depth, L2 is second depth, L3 is fifth depth, L4 is fourth depth, and L5 is fifth depth. First depth, sorry. L5 is first
So
depth.
that's the relationship with the fingers and the lumbar circle. So this is a very, very, very in-depth question, and this question is really a lifetime study. Mary created what is it called? The sheet? The question?
The answer sheet.
The answer sheet. And that sheet is a lifetime study. And that's a very interesting topic that we can study. So for today we'll just have this, and then next month we'll talk more about it.
So when you look at the lumbar circle, the order of the circle is the order of the energizers, and so that's the order that the lumbar vertebrae are going. So third depth energizes second depth. So L1 energizes L2. Second depth energizes fifth depth. So L2 energizes L3. And so it goes around in a circle like that. So we can just move down from one vertebrae to the next and know that the one above energizes the one below.
And so you can hold your fingers to help the lumbars.
Yeah.
Okay. It's very powerful. They're all very powerful. So I just wanted to, let's just talk about the hands today and the depth. So you don't have to lie down for them. So Michael, I don't know if you can come closer so we can just, okay, so yeah, you can still do all of us because it's going to be the same hand. So you can
Doesn't matter, right or left?
just a little bit closer and still also have us in the view. I like to be on camera now.
You're so used to it.
Oh my gosh! At first I'm like, oh. Okay, so when we treat someone, we look at the hands as well, the hands and the feet, and so there's many different ways we can look at it. One is the depth on the hand. So what we went over today already: first depth, fourth depth, third depth, second depth, and fifth depth. So Lisa, what do you know about the hands and the depth?
You mean what does that indicate? The project or?
Yeah. So what do the hands tell you? Like when you look at the hands.
I see the section in this area, so I think that's more the waist section. And it looks like maybe some project there. That's the only thing I can get it out.
And do you see it more on the right or the left? Maybe.
I would see more of the right, but the left actually has a little bit more this area because this is not that even, and here is more even. But I don't know what it indicated.
I also feel that this is a little. The right side, a little fuller, yeah.
Yeah, and the thumb, this right hand is straighter and the left is a little bit angled, so I don't know what that indicated.
That's very good. Yeah, so this would also help then the organs that live here and tells you about the waistline. Another way to look at and of course we have the sixth depth here and the palm, diaphragm and umbilicus. So all the energies come together there if you look at the hand, and these are the fruits of the tree then here, and they come together to the roots, you know. Yeah.
So can you tell the texture by feeling the depths, by feeling the...
In effect you can,
right.
by the pulse that comes in, or by the texture. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fingers are, there's less flesh, so you're feeling on a more minute level.
Okay.
But, especially like, I mean, my 18 here is pretty gummy. It feels a little bit like a rubber ball.
Can I feel?
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh! It is from first step.
But and some of that's just my musculature, but it's gummy. Someone else might have a really full 18, but you just sink into it, and that would be fluff. Yeah. The other thing
what else? Yeah.
you can do is you can look at color. It's a little bit hard in here because we have all these funny lights, but so I see a little bit of a greenness here,
which tells you what depth does that talk about? Greenish.
Okay, that I confess I forgot.
Third depth.
Okay,
is
thank
green.
you. But I see here it's like more pale and more pink, even whatever the lighting is.
Yeah.
So there's probably a third depth component. If it shows up in the body, then there is a component, and then some.
So you would use this then to check the rest of the body as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So coloring, we are looking at chest line, waistline, and hip line, and the organs that live there. On the depth level, just which finger, which depth, and then the organ functions. And can you Always like
Sure.
to talk about that. And then that's our last
Yeah,
little
this is
part,
our
and we're going to
last
end
bit.
it there.
So on the hands, we have 3 depths that come either start in the chest and go to the fingers, or start in the fingers and go up to the face. And so those are 2nd depth, 6th depth, and 5th depth. So 2nd depth comes out to the thumb and the index finger, and then goes back from the index finger. So we have lung that comes out, and then large intestine that goes
Yeah, so lung comes here
on this side.
on the inside. So you see how each depth has an ascending and a descending part.
And then large intestine goes back. And then we also have diaphragm that comes out to the middle finger and the ring finger.
Where it becomes.
And then umbilicus goes back up this way. And then on the inside also we have heart that comes out to the little finger, and then small intestine that goes back.
Yeah. So sometimes you hear that people have this pain down there on the little finger side, on the left side. So this is why, because the heart flow moves there.
I see.
So you can hold your little finger
Okay.
or get into the 26.
Yeah.
So
And I, on and off, I have this kind of heart suddenly jumping, and then that's when I just go to the little finger right away, and it really calms it down.
Yeah.
it really does. Yeah.
Yeah. And if it feels more than just a palpitation, sometimes, I mean, we having palpitations every so often are normal. That's not necessarily a sign to be worried about.
I have
but
it sometimes.
yeah, we all will have something like that. But if there's pain, or if there's something more chronic that you're concerned about, then you can grab your little finger and I think of it like
Yeah,
putting
it's a
your
special mood right here.
your
Actually,
your
I'm
hands
going
in
to post that
scissors
one.
or something,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a way to really clear if things are getting stuck in your heart.
Yeah.
It really clears up your heart, and
Yeah.
and you can do that if you think you're having a heart attack. And do that while you're going to the hospital. And it hurts. I mean, it hurts me right now.
And you
really
can
squeeze
you
the
still need to
left
check
side.
out your heart
Does it matter right or
probably,
left?
but this will.
You would do the left, probably. Hold the left hand,
So it's these two.
unless you know that your heart is on the right side, which is uncommon. So hold the left.
Yeah, so an emergency like that, you just really get in there and right into the line. So for next month, we'll continue this conversation. We're going to look at the depths and the spine, and we'll also look at the depths on the body. So in the meanwhile, if people have questions, you can send them in, and we'll look at them, we'll address them. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Ready for next month. That's only halfway done.